Okay, we're going to get started. Thank you everyone for joining us. This is a installment for our MAT Bridge webinar. It's a webinar for technology to assist learning. So thank you for joining us. We're hosting the seminar as part of our coursework for our second year as master's students at the Master of Education and Technology for Michigan State University. My name's Bridget Bennett, for some of you that don't know me, and I'm going to be moderating our conversation today and helping guide our conversation with some questions. I am currently a fourth grade teacher at Ada Elementary in Forest Hills Public Schools, and we also have two other group members of mine today from our education technology program who will also be helping us out with this webinar. So Kelly and Sherry, I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Kelly. I currently teach fourth grade at Briarwood Elementary and Warren Woods Public Schools in the Metro Detroit area. And I'm going to be the technical support for today. So I'm going to kind of be the behind the scenes person and supporting Bridget and Sherry also.
Hi, I'm Sherry, and I teach third grade at Pelston Elementary in Pelston, Michigan. It's just south of Mackinac Bridge, and I will be monitoring the Twitter back channel today during our conversation. So feel free to follow along on hashtag Tech2Assist.
Yay. So this is a program that's going to be broadcasted live just a couple minutes ago, and we'll be sharing not only with the 6 of us here right now, but also on our YouTube and our MAT Bridge program. So today our focus is going to be talking about how to use technology effectively to assist learning. And we're specifically going to be talking about how to prepare our students to use technology effectively. And to discuss this idea further, we have several guests that have joined us today. And I'd like for you guys to just share out a little bit about yourself and what you're doing, what your role is, why we might have asked you to be here with us today. So Kristin, I'm gonna let you get started. If you wouldn't mind sharing with us a little bit about what you do as a career in education, that'd be great.
Glad to. So my name is Kristin Kemppainen, and I currently teach third grade at Ada Elementary in Forest Hills Public Schools. Part of my role as a third grade teacher has become the tech teacher, I guess. So I am responsible for guiding the learning of how to use technology as a tool with all the third graders in our building. So we explore, we collaborate, we learn the Google platform. And hopefully Bridget will find as her fourth graders come in that those students are able to sit down and explore, use the tools as needed to further their learning. That's what I do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kristin. And we also have with us here today, Linda Cooper. I hope that her mic is working. Is it working? Oh, I don't think it is. I still can't hear her. Okay, so Linda Cooper is going to type to us, I think, what she does, and I'm going to be reading that out. So we're actually going to hop on over and see what Heather Kowalski does, and if you could tell us a little bit about your role in technology education.
Sure. My name is Heather Kowalski, and I work for Sheboygan Otsego Prescott Educational Service District, as well as REMC3. And so I am a math and tech integration consultant. And this will be starting my third year in this position, so I'm kind of new. I'm also a Google certified trainer. And so I've been doing a lot in these past couple years with Google, as well as we've been exploring maker spaces and all of the coding that comes with that, as well as Breakout EDU. And we're hosting a play date this year. So just lots of different initiatives going on, trying to get technology into the hands of our teachers so that our students get experiences. So
wonderful.
Glad to be here.
Thank you so much, Heather, for joining us. I know that you had to rush to do that, and we really, really appreciate you being here.
No problem.
So Linda is actually, she was a high school counselor for a a charter cyber school. I believe it was K-12, the K-12 program. Linda, yep, she said, yeah. So she was working on the counseling aspect, but on a completely online school. So again, I will just kind of reiterate what she types in there, and sharing, Kelly, if you want to help monitor that too, in case I'm missing it. Okay, so thank you so much, everybody, for being here and for introducing yourselves. Carrie and Sherry and myself, we've generated some questions to help lead our discussion, but we're kind of hoping it just turns into a collaborative conversation where there's no exact order. It doesn't need to be everyone has to answer every question. You can just kind of share out what you're thinking as far as where we've guided this conversation, but don't be afraid to steer away and going into a topic or something that we could learn from you. So during this time, we're just going to be talking and focusing our first part of this conversation on using technology effectively. And I was just kind of hoping that we could share out what we kind of think this term means. There's no exact definition, but if you could think of what it means to use quote unquote technology effectively in your own personal experience, not necessarily as a teacher, where might be a time or a place that you think using technology effectively in your own personal life happens, or just an example of that?
Okay, well, I'll jump in.
Great.
Today, right now, this is a clear, perfect example. Get yourself into a Google Hangout and figure out how it all works. If we weren't comfortable with our own use of technology, trying to explore, I mean, even Linda, who's not unable to get on, she's trying to troubleshoot her way through.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important, that ability to think beyond the I don't know what to do mindset is what got us all here right now. I think everything we do somehow interfaces with technology, and the more we see similar in all of the different tools that we use, the more apt we are to use them all effectively and efficiently.
Great, thank you. I think that's a wonderful example, and we're definitely making the best of what we can do right now as well.
I think that using technology effectively is to either do something more efficiently that you've done in the past, or to do something, be able to do something that you could not have otherwise done without the technology. So I think of my husband is a middle school teacher, and he did, I don't know if you've ever done a mystery Skype. And so with this class, and so the kids were able to connect with kids in another state and learn from them and learn about geography and guess where they were. And it was an amazing thing to be a part of. And so I think like when you can use technology to enhance what you're doing, the kids really are engaged, and they're just more apt to remember those experiences. Plus, we talk about career and college ready. I mean, you need to be, to be career ready now, you need to have experiences with technology. So it's big.
It is. It's definitely a topic of conversation right now that's pretty pivotal in what we're doing as educators. And Kelly Kermode just joined us as well. So Kelly, just to kind of catch you up, we just kind of introduced ourselves and what we're doing, and then we're just starting our conversation about using tech effectively. So if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself real quick, I'll get us back to our topic. That way everyone knows that you're here as well.
Sure, no worries. My name is Kelly Kermode, and I am the Integrated Learning Strategist for Forest Hills Public Schools. This will be my 18th year in education. I have taught, I think, 16 different preps in my years of education, anywhere from econ and US history to algebra, to high school English, to computers, game design, information systems, that kind of thing. And I'm just happy to be here. So thanks so much.
And thank you very much for joining us too. I know you and Heather are both out doing your own thing with Google right now, so we appreciate the time you guys are helping with us. Okay, so I'm going to definitely put this question out here right now so that Linda can respond to this, and I'll read that. When we're thinking about using technology, we were wondering as the MAET students how, when we're using technology effectively, in order for it to be used correctly to assist their learning, what prior knowledge is it that we expect our students to come to school with? So are we depending just on parents, looking at secondary levels, elementary levels? And Linda, especially for you working at a cyber school, what are some prior skills and knowledge regarding technology we expect students to come to school with? And just so you know, Kelly, too, Linda's just typing. Her mic's not working, so anybody can chime in on the conversation.
Got it.
I know, well, in Northern Michigan, we have a lot of poverty, and so we really don't expect our students to come with any skills. I think that as educators, it's our job to expose them to the skills and teach them what they need to know. You can't just throw a piece of technology at them and expect them to know what to do with it. They're really quick to learn, way faster than us as adults, but I think that there's teaching that needs to go hand in hand with it, especially if you want it to be used effectively, for sure, especially in our area. Maybe it's different.
No.
Maybe it's different when they have one-to-one or
right.
We don't up here.
Learn faster than we do. I think it's a matter of just different perspectives. What I found is a lot of adults tend to understand that if they click something, there is an implication, whereas a lot of younger learners will just click because they can, and they'll click to figure out, and they'll click to go, 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 go. You know, when I was training teachers, like my mom and her friends, way back in the day, they would be so afraid to ruin their computer. And I think a lot of our students nowadays just say, well, I'll just erase it and start again. I have a friend right now where she tries to limit what her granddaughter sees on these devices and how to wipe the device and reset it so there's no restrictions on it. It's that ability to just haphazardly go and create and to remake and I think we need both. We need all those people to come together. We need the people that are really great at risk taking and haphazardly clicking. But we also need the people that are very cautious, and we need them in the same room. So I think when you bring teachers and students together, it's that mutual conversation that's needed, because there's experience in the room, and that you have all these risk takers, these young risk takers that don't know what the implications of some of their risks are. And I think when you bring kids in, the idea of a digital native, we know, is a false idea. Sure, you have kids that know how to click, but they don't know what they're doing, and you can't assume they know what they're doing. We know now that just because they put a device in their hand doesn't make them a digital native. It makes them somebody that we give a car to without taking them to driver's training. So
that's a good analogy.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to take a second. Linda was just talking about a big expectation for students in a cyber or all online school is students being able to know the basics of Office, using Office, and having a good mentality of how to figure things out, but also correct me if I'm wrong, Linda, just having the idea that it helps them to figure things out too, kind of what Kelly was saying, the whole problem solving and being fearless when it comes to approaching that, but also with permission to use that tech, I believe. Okay, so I think that the context that we have here is that it really does depend on the context of your students, what they know and their background knowledge. And as teachers, we know that, but we've been working on two kind of studies that we're going to go into in our program. And one is we've been doing some learning about information literacy, and that in our words for this conversation is talking about the ability to know when information is needed, locate, evaluate, and effectively use the information for the issue or the problem at hand. So right now, you guys just kind of mentioned this. It's a 21st century skill. It's expected for all students to be able to kind of learn through this, whether it's through teachers or on their own. How is it that we can determine what knowledge students should have. So we might not have that understanding of prior knowledge, but how should teachers go about knowing where each student should be, whether it's a grade level or basic? I mean, it could be different classes, like Kelly was talking about how she taught different specific classes. How do we determine what knowledge students should have about technology in order to teach it the best that we can?
I think in anything you do with education, the answer lies in the final outcome. So it's not, you don't start with, hey, these kids show up in my room and what skill sets do they need to have or where should they be at? It's by the last day that I have with these students, what do I want them to have accomplished? Should they write their own app? Are they going to develop their own game? Are they going to be able to whatever? Then you back up from there. My experience has shown me that the further I just put the goal out there, they will meet it. I've had some kids do some crazy leaps, and it's just because I put this goal out there and all that learning that's needed in between, they'll figure out a way to do it. We're in a tough time right now because things are changing so fast. And I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen the presentation and the stats that a college freshman enters and half the information they learn their freshman year will be null and void by the time they're a senior in college. So part of that is just flexibility. Go with the flow, shift your learning. So relearn, relearn, relearn.
Yeah, Kelly makes a really good point. I was going to actually say the same thing, that the technology is changing so fast that I don't think you can really put a set, like they have to know how to use this tool or this skill. I think you need to look at what you're teaching, and you need to think about technology. Is there a way that I can use technology to enhance or to push farther what I'm doing? And the app that you use today might be different next week. So it's just trying new things and getting them exposed to a lot of different tools so that they have things that they can rely on when they have to do something on their own. So it's really just a matter of playing with it, being exposed to it, not being afraid to try new things, and trying to make what you do more efficient.
Absolutely, and I know I can speak for Kristin a little bit here too. I love this idea of the whole backwards design. You have this end goal or this end outcome and work toward it, but be willing to be very flexible and learn and relearn. But Kristin, do you want to speak a little too about digital citizenship? Because that might be something that teachers don't necessarily know about. They should, but we don't want to assume they do. Because I know that these are things that we're putting into place right now at elementary levels as far as it actually being knowledge that students are gaining in our classrooms.
Correct. So we use the lessons from commonsensemedia.org, and what we're teaching is it's that whole idea of backwards design. So we're looking at what do we want them at the end of school. We want them to be responsible, respectful, considerate users of technology in whatever aspect they're using the tools. So we use the opportunity, the time, whenever we're using technology, to reinvest our students in the idea that whatever they do online, they have to, it's a choice. That it can't be spontaneous and quick and careless. So I'm kind of rambling here as I'm driving, sorry, but I'm thinking of like passwords, why are they important, and what is private and personal information, and how is it different? And it amazes me every year that I've been teaching this to my students, they've never heard it before. How do we know what information should be shared, even on their online games that they've been playing since they were maybe 5 on a parent's iPad? Information that they have shared about who they are, where they live, what their age may be, their password is always something easy that they can remember. It might be their birth date, it might be their house number. So we teach them how to stay safe and secure online. We teach them not to have conversations with people that they don't know face to face. We work with, well, Kelly and I and Bridget, along with another teacher, we also work together with high school students. We blog together, but we make sure that the students who have never met before have an opportunity to start a relationship face to face, to reiterate that idea that we're using technology as a tool to further communication or to collaborate with people that we are not right next to in a room, a classroom, a living room, but they have to be people that are known to the student in order for that to be a safe and secure place to be online.
Wonderful, thank you. So information literacy is obviously, it's different for everyone, but another framework that we've been studying at Michigan State is called TPAC. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. We put it on our little document, but it's the idea of merging technology, pedagogy, and content knowledge. But the most important idea is understanding the when and the why to use technology. So if we could think about some positive and negative examples of using technology when it's appropriate and when it's not, when would everyone think that using technology is appropriate, or vice versa when it is not appropriate?
Linda,
oh, go ahead.
Linda, does your sound work? I'm getting sound from you.
Can you hear me now?
Yay!
Yes.
I thought, you know what, why don't I use my iPad? Duh.
Well, thank you for being a problem solver. We appreciate it. So my question was kind of the idea of you're thinking about your students, the content kind of goes back to, someone just said it. Oh, it was Heather, when we talked about what do you expect your knowledge to have? You said there's no expectations. So it was all about the content and the pedagogy of your students. You can't assume that they know something. So there's your context. When is it appropriate to use technology, and how are teachers going to know when it is appropriate or why it's important to use? And you could think of an example of where it was appropriate and when it's not appropriate, or one or the other. Either way, just kind of when do you think when and why it's important?
I think this is like a struggle for a lot of teachers, especially when they want to like kind of get their feet wet with technology. So they think they're going to do something that is really like, yay, I'm using technology, and then it kind of backfires on them. So then I feel like then they take 10 steps back and, oh, I can't, I'm done. I'm, like say, for example, Google Classroom. Okay, so they have this great idea they're going to use Google Classroom, and then they post a question up there for their kids, and it turns into this big, like, basically Facebook of kids talking back and forth, and maybe some are putting inappropriate things up that they shouldn't, and then they think, oh my gosh, that was terrible, but they were trying to use technology. So I think it's just a fine line, and yeah, you're probably going to use it at times that you think we're good, and then it really was not an effective use of technology. So I think they really have to think about, am I using it just to use it, or am I using it to really enhance what I'm doing? So like I think of Google Docs. You can write a paper just as well as you could type it, but once you start collaborating on your paper in a Google Doc, now you're taking it to like a whole nother level. So it's a hard question. It's there's no, I wouldn't say there's any really right or wrong time to use technology. An error. And so I encourage people to just try and, learn from the mistakes and,
And I just want to ask you a follow-up question to that too, because I can see where there's that, I don't know if it's right and wrong, but trial and error, but how about for the reluctant teachers that are so afraid to use it?
I didn't hear the first part.
I said I was just paraphrasing what you had said, and I said, what about the teachers that are really reluctant to use it or refuse to?
I think they have to start small to try something they're comfortable with. And I think that's where if someone models it for them or is there to kind of like support them through their first time, then they're more apt to try it. Like I think I always encourage people to try something like Kahoot because kids love it. And so even if you mess up, like it's not the end of the world. So to try something kind of easy, I think it gets people, gives them a little bit more courage to try because there are people are so afraid it's going to fail on them or their internet's not going to work. Or so, you know, a lot of times just even watching someone else do it. So I try to like in all my PDs and stuff to give model something so that people can take back and try and they can see how easy it was because people they're afraid.
Definitely.
So this is Linda. Yay!
Hi, Linda.
I'm finally participating. So just to piggyback on that, I think that is so true that really people have to jump in and use the technology. And especially for those of you who are younger teachers, if you get in there and support older teachers, because they're the ones that are going to be a little bit more afraid of it. And it is a fear thing. It's like, the kids will laugh at me. I won't know what, you're stuck like me trying to figure out what the heck am I going to do to get my mic working? And if you just stop and say, done, I couldn't figure it out. I'll never figure this out. It's a problem. So those problem solving skills that you want the kids to have are also things that the teachers need to feel safe practicing, and it's a safety issue.
Yeah. And I encourage my teachers to just be honest with their students, like, hey, I've never done this before. We're going to learn. We're going to try this. It might not work. Kids get it. They're so forgiving. And so if they're just honest with them, half the time the kids can help you troubleshoot. So I think, yeah, you just have to try it.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, what do you think? Do your teachers, are they afraid?
I probably take a little bit different approach.
But that's good. That's what we want to hear. Everyone's approaches are different. So
You have to do a lot of modeling.
Well, I think right now in our school systems, teachers are stretched pretty thin. I think that class sizes are going up. I think expectations are on them. The expectation to communicate to home more frequently, the expectation to update grades more frequently. I mean, when you look at, when I started teaching, I was grading in a paper grade book. If I wanted to do electronic, that was completely on my own. It was not systematic. I was expected to update grades once a month, every 4 weeks. And now teachers are being asked to update grades every 5 days. And when you start adding in time like that, the idea of the electronic gradebook was to make life easier. Technology was supposed to make life easier. But when you quadruple the reporting frequency, you've now quadrupled that task for staff. And when you, and I've done this, when you take a work week for a teacher and you break it down and you dissect the minutes, we've really done our job to ourselves in the school, in the educational industry. So unless the right supports are in place, I have a really hard time going into a teacher's classroom and saying, hey, by the way, you're going to do more, or hey, by the way, I need you to take another leap, or hey, by the way, I need you to try something. I kind of wait until the teachers come to me or come to another teacher leader. If it's what's best and good for kids, and this is my whole life mantra, the truth shall set you free. And if what we're doing with kids is what's best and good for kids, teachers will come along because teachers naturally want what's best and good for kids. If a teacher can't do that at the moment for a variety of reasons, personal reasons, fear, lack of time, lack of support, then we're going to give them that breathing room, because what they're doing is they're giving their students the best possible experience with what they can do right now. Now, being patient with that has paid off in the long run, because if what we're doing for kids is what's best and right for kids, you will have people slowly take leaps with you. And yes, Heather, that means, do I go in and work with them in their classroom and model? Sure. But I typically don't promote the things that are game-based and clicking. We have a whole society of kids growing up that love to play click games on their phones. They know how to download games. They know how to click through games. When we talk about teachers and time is, it's priceless right now. It is so precious. And so when a teacher is going to take a leap with me and they're going to give me some time, I want it to help kids think. I want it to help them question. I want it to help them grow critically. Now, if I have to use an app or something to kind of build a bridge for teachers, fine. But if a teacher's going to give me some time and take a risk with me, we're going to rebuild a lesson. We're going to rebuild something to get our kids thinking and to get them processing so that they can become that thoughtful citizen that we need. We've got a whole world of clickers. We've got a whole world of people just clicking on stuff and believing it. And the clicking without thinking, I don't have time for that, and teachers don't have time for that. So that's kind of I have teachers all the time say, what about this? What about this? And I'm like, what are you going to do with it? Like, at the end of the day, if it's just to get kids clicking, we're not going to go down that road.
Right.
So kind of just to summarize, I don't know if it'll spark anyone else's thinking either, but we were talking about knowing when it is appropriate to use technology or why it's appropriate to use it. And it really is about what tools you have, the context of your kids, the context of your teachers, the pedagogy of what they know, and then also what content is being taught. So I was kind of hoping that we could think about the idea of kids achieving their greatest potential, whether it was to think, or some of the things that you guys were talking about was thinking and growing critically. But I mean, there's a lot of things that we're required to do as teachers using technology, and it leads to those achievements and growths, because a lot of our testing is done online too. But I was hoping that we could get some examples from those of you that are modeling something you've done in your classroom, or Linda, something that people have to do online. But if you could share with us some examples of what you saw or have done of the most effective use of technology that you've seen, like those mind-blowing moments where you're like, that technology really enhanced that student's learning or assisted them. So a little bit different than our previous question, knowing when and why, but what would be some stellar examples, or ones that bombed, that whole trial and error thing, that the technology really assisted the students to learn and be engaged within the content of something?
So this isn't all completely technology, but there's usually a technology aspect to it. But one of the things that has really kind of gone quite well this last year was we've done a lot of breakout EDU stuff, and it has been wonderful for problem solving, team building, collaboration, kids working together. And I tell you, it amazes me every single time I see one done in the classroom. Every single kid is problem solving the entire time they're working at, and it's amazing. Kids just, they need the experiences to be able to really practice working together and thinking on their own. And breakout EDU is like, it gives them the chance to just really think. And it's been, I don't know, great experience for me this last year. I don't know if anyone else has experienced them or not, but that's been like my highlight of the last year at all grade levels. I mean, I've done it pre-K through adults, and every single time I'm just amazed. So that'd be my big wow of the year.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll jump in. Again, I'm going to come from more of a high school perspective, and I'm so sorry that I missed part of this, so this may have been covered. And I've heard the word a number of times, collaboration. And that is one of the biggest takeaway skills I think that kids can bring with them beyond high school. Because at this stage of the game, they will need to know how to work collaboratively, virtually, remotely, as well as face-to-face. And they need experience doing all of those three. I can't imagine sending a kid off to college without the ability to work with a group, even if they're not in person. And it's just amazing the access they can have to resources and people all over the United States, all over the school district and different, together. So I would definitely encourage kids to be working collaboratively from home. If that's homework, then that's homework. But I think it's really important for them.
Just to speak to that, when Linda's talking about collaboration, I was just having this discussion earlier today that when we talk about students on social media, it's it's interesting because they're on social media, but when I have discussions with students about how I collaborate on social media and how they collaborate on social media, their social media circle is pretty much their school circle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amplifying all of the school clique stuff.
Sure.
Because of all the social media. They don't really know how to reach out to people on social media and actually be productive. And
right.
That is the detriment, is that they know how to click, but as far as that reach and that connection piece, and using it to connect with others outside of that already formed circle, that is a problem.
And an opportunity.
It is, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So perhaps that's where the taking them by the hand, those classroom management tools. And earlier, somebody was mentioning the fear that teachers have of things getting out of control because all of a sudden it just turns into a big chat room and it's social. So all of your classroom management strategies in a brick and mortar setting have to be used when kids are when they're working collaboratively and virtually. So you really, as teachers, have to think through, what does that mean? How am I going to manage this group?
Yep.
Because that's really an important thing. And that's a skill that then they take with them in the social media setting, hopefully.
So I might just totally disrupt the flow here. I'm good with that.
I'm good with that.
I think when you talk about achievements of kids, the work I've done in classrooms in the last few years, where whether it's my classroom or another teacher's classroom, when we allow students to be in charge of the final outcome, when we allow students to kind of determine what the final project will look like, it means that they're not all getting the same skill sets. It means that those kids get to choose their path, but we get some really wonderful outcomes.
Yeah,
we've had some students program Choose Your Own Adventures. We've had students program robots. We've had students make games. We've had students reach out to experts around the world and really model. And I think when you have peers modeling different modalities for their peers and taking risks in different directions, it really benefits everybody, and it makes that more welcome in your classroom. A lot of teachers are afraid of this because the predetermined outcomes aren't scripted. And I think in our world where there's so much change so fast, we kind of need to be okay with that sometimes. And so when we talk about those wonderful things that students do, we kind of give them some room to determine that for themselves sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they don't get enough.
Yeah, they don't.
And I think as a teacher, it falls back on that, what you were saying earlier about all of the the need for instant uploading of grades. And so when you have your class going in all different directions, you have to have a pretty solid idea of how are you going to assess whether they reach your objective or not. And that's a scary place for a teacher to be.
That was actually a big aspect of where we wanted this conversation, not wanted it to go, but something that we had strongly questioned was this idea of, I kind of skipped over it, but the idea of how, because it is an expectation of teachers to assess, how can we properly, what would be the best way, or how can we properly assess students on their skills at using technology, whether it's being used appropriately, or talking about, you know, choosing your own path. If kids are choosing their own path, how as a teacher can we set that accountability to make sure that they're pushing themselves? Or, I mean, like, where's that idea of assessing and pre-assessing? Not that I want it, I would rather it be, it's more about your problem solving skills and your effort. But unfortunately, that's something that we're tied to right now. And what's a good balance? How can we assess but still push for that creativity, the choosing their own path, and setting their own expectations and taking their own ownership, especially when it comes to collaboration, which you guys were all talking about. Like, all of those things go together. So how is it that we can best assess or pre-assess where students are to let each kid learn at their own or get to their own set goal?
Well, I think we really need to, as an educational world, back the truck up and just question how we define that word assessment. Because we've had these multi-billion-dollar companies putting down our throat that assessment looks like this package over here or this package over here. When in reality, following student progress can look a myriad of ways, a myriad of different ways. And when we're talking about project-based learning, when we're talking about letting students choose their path, you can do observational records, you can do student self-assessment, you can do monitoring progress, can look a whole lot. You can do portfolios. It doesn't have to be cookie cutter, it doesn't have to be similar. And I have found, my last few years in the classroom, when I could, I threw out grades. It doesn't mean I wasn't assessing, and it doesn't mean my students didn't make progress. But taking away that kind of nonsensical piece to a project-based class, I've never had more positive parent-teacher conferences. I've never had students actually go home and just, and parents, their feedback was, my kid comes home and talks about your class just because they have so much fun in it, and they're just taking risks and they're doing this and doing that. And colleagues that have done the same thing have had similar results, where when you open up the assessment to be defined differently than the way we've kind of had it drilled down our throat, kids are very receptive to it. It reduces anxiety. It reduces a lot of unneeded pressure. And I hate to say it, but we're in kind of like the perfect storm time frame right now. I could probably get my hands slapped for this. That across the United States, we are tens of thousands of teachers short. Tens of thousands of teachers short, right? Detroit Public Schools is 450 teachers short. This is one school district out of thousands across the United States. So this is the time where teachers can own their classroom a little bit and say, it's not good educational practice to assess every 5 days. I was working with a school district in a different state where they were mandated to test 20 days out of 45.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I don't know how you assess 20 days out of 45. Where's the learning time in there? There has to be space and time for learning. And I'm sorry, but right now teachers are in such high need. It's time for us to own our classrooms and do what's best for kids. So that's where I'm gonna leave it.
So tell
I think
that.
just to piggyback on that, I think the feedback is what's the most important that you're giving them throughout the process of the project-based learning. You know, the feedback is where they're going to learn and grow and change what they're doing and be able to communicate it and collaborate. And I think that's, and I think you could still use a rubric. You don't have to have cookie cutter rubric. You could, you know, use a rubric to, if you had to have an assessment. It's not going to look the same as, you know, paper pencil test, obviously. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense. And we test enough for the sake of testing. I agree.
Well, and I think as we move more and more into our project-based learning, we really need to then take a look at how our individuals, how our work performance, how is that assessed in the workplace outside of a school setting? It's in conversation. It's in you know, really taking a look at a rubric performance evaluation. It's feedback and it's ongoing. That's where we need to go. That's what needs to change.
So Linda, just out of curiosity, what does that look like? I mean, I've never participated in an all online class. The program that myself and the other Kelly and Sherry are in is a hybrid program where it's half online and half in person. Mm-hmm. What does this sort of look like in an all online cyber school? How does that even work?
Well, what are you asking me exactly?
Well, because I mean, we're just curious to know how a whole cyber, I mean, K-12, that's very different than a college class. Like, when you're assessing content of students, they're expected to be able to use technology to even go to school. Are they assessed through something like this where it's conversation and feedback? How is it? That's just a curiosity. It doesn't necessarily tie, but I'm just curious to know myself.
Yeah, they are. And I should have actually brought a teacher along, a teacher from Michigan Virtual along to address this, but students are assessed in the same way that they're assessed in a brick and mortar setting. Every teacher has a web conference room, so kids can be one-on-one with their teachers at any given point in time or full classroom setting. The only difference is they're not physically seeing a kid. So anything that you're going to do, any teaching time ends up being run exactly the same time. One of the things that happens in a virtual setting, particularly with the elementary through early middle school age, would be that the parents are an integral part of the learning because kids are at home. So the teachers basically mentor the parents in being their own kids' teachers. So in that sense, it would be much more similar to a homeschool kind of situation. But there's ongoing conversation and feedback. As I listen to you talking about, the feedback that kids have to have on an ongoing basis if they're collaborating, and what are you figuring out about what you want to measure? That has to happen in a virtual setting too. So technology is all well and good, but that doesn't change the interaction that has to be ongoing throughout the day with each and every student. That just can't change. How you might measure it might be a little bit more automated. There's a lot of Scantron testing that goes on that might not go on in a brick and mortar setting. But it is interesting to watch even, our art teachers, I'm not there anymore, but the art teachers had very robust curriculum and or curricula. So I don't even know how they do it, but there's, the technology and digital technology makes it possible to do pretty much anything. Science teachers actually at the high school level had finally decided that they were not going to be doing classroom labs anymore, but they would do all of the labs virtually because they felt the kids were actually getting better experience by doing what I would consider canned virtual labs. There was a lot more manipulation and learning that was going on. So I think that anything can happen. And the one thing that nobody ever had to worry about is, are our kids utilizing technology, because that was just ongoing. Another big thing for kids to learn how to do, and it goes along with collaboration, is how to advocate if you're for yourself, if you're a virtual student. How do you communicate with your teacher and your fellow classmates when you're a kindergartner and you're in a virtual setting? Well, the teacher really has to lead the whole show with that. But it's interesting just to see how they make that happen. It would probably feel very familiar to you, but some of the things that you might be struggling with, how do you teach kids to do this? It's just assumed that kids will learn how to use technology. And they do.
In your setting, they are, right?
Yeah, I mean, they always do. And it seems like such a big hurdle when you're in your brick and mortar classrooms, but it really doesn't have to be such a big hurdle. Because kids will come along, they'll get it, they'll figure it out, because they're not afraid. And if it's a teacher, you're not afraid, they won't be.
Thank you.
I
And
probably didn't answer what you were asking, but
no, we're all good. I was asking that as a side comment because I don't know how it works. And Heather, I know you kind of got cut off there. Did you want to add to something with that? The idea of that, how do we assess that? How do we gauge where they are, where they're going?
No, I just think feedback, and I liked Kelly. I think it's Kelly.
Yeah.
Portfolio is great. But with project-based, really, it's all about the project.
Definitely.
Feedback.
And I know that some of this conversation we've touched on it just from all of your stories, but the stories and comments and ideas that you've had. But the last question that we have for this webinar that we were just curious about, it goes back to this idea about our constantly increased opportunity for interaction across countries around the world, whether it be through social media or other platforms. But I might be making my own opinion here. I don't know if a lot of teachers realize the impact that could have on their students, but I think teachers need to know how to foster that cultural competence, the emotional awareness, leadership skills to facilitate, kind of like what you were just talking about, Linda, was advocating with other teachers for yourself, but making meaningful interactions and having meaningful relationships in a cyber world. How can this be kind of taught effectively to students? Do you have any ideas? I know this is an area that's unknown to me, teaching at a 4th grade level, but I've gotten some ideas. What would be some ways that we could, as teachers, positively impact that bigger piece here, that culture idea, the emotional sense? Any ideas, suggestions on using technology in that way?
Well, Heather, you brought up mystery calls, right? I thought, yeah. So as a jumping off point, I think those mystery calls to other classrooms, even if it's within our country or other countries, there are so many communities on Google Plus already geared towards that. All you have to do is go in and leave a message. I'm a 4th grade classroom in Michigan. I'd love to do a mystery Skype call on this day at this time, and you've got people responding to you. Mm-hmm. So as far as the effort put in to get that output, I don't want to say easy fix. That's an easier fix to get involved with bridging classrooms. The system's set up, the opportunities are there. You've got people willing to handhold and help with that. And then it's just, I mean, it's kids talking to kids about guessing where they are, right? So then you're asking about geographical questions and landscapes and landmarks, and now you're perking curiosity about the world and the world they live in, and it gets them relating to weather patterns in different parts of the world. All those things kind of come together. That's level one of just how you can find other classrooms and get involved.
And that was called mystery calls?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Misguided. But also, I think virtual reality too. I mean, when we talk about culture, I mean, you can see museums in all other places all over the world just by doing virtual reality. And, some kids will never get to experience going to those places. And I think if you can give them those experiences right in the classroom, then that's somewhere to start too.
All right, Bridget, when you post this link to this webinar, are you going to post additional links for resources as well?
Yes.
Okay, you can get
You know,
links.
another thing that's a really good idea, and again, I know most of you are elementary teachers, but I think about the opportunities for career development kinds of pieces, along with the virtual reality. And I always worked with kids who were in poverty, so they did not come from enriched environments. And I think to give kids an opportunity to meet people in business and industry, to start learning, to start understanding what the connection is between maybe that science experiment that they just did in class, what the connection to Van Andel Institute would be, for example, or University of Michigan. So partnering up with people who are actually out there in the world, and whether it's geography or science or math or whatever it is, I think there are so many opportunities for that.
I know for myself, that's definitely a goal that I want to continue working on, is reaching out just beyond, the school, the area, just reaching out and making sure I'm modeling more of that cultural competence for sure. So thank you for those wonderful ideas. And Kelly, yes, to answer your question, we are on our Bridge site for MSU. We're going to be posting additional resources based on this conversation, hence all my notes. So any resources that you all are willing to share with us, please just shoot us an email, or if even better, if you wanted to tweet it out to us, we will be able to give those resources to other people that might want to view this later. So just to kind of summarize some of the big things that I'm taking away, and Sherry and Kelly Swindell, if you guys want to kind of chime in on this, some of the big takeaways I'm thinking about when we think about using technology to assist learning and teach it effectively. Some of the big things that really kept coming up over and over and over is this idea of not assessing, but setting goals and letting students be creative and setting their own expectations to learn and relearn and model and use change rather than just assessing it on a grade point scale or a standards expectation. Collaboration, I think that came from every one of our speakers today, that in any context, we need to be supporting and using collaboration in person and using technology. So allowing students that chance to work collaboratively online is going to be very helpful in using tech effectively. And kind of getting back to that idea of achievement, letting students determine where they're going to be and how they're going to get there are ways that we can use tech effectively in our classrooms to not only assist them, but to make it more meaningful to our students.
I like the idea of starting small with technology in the classroom, and that's something that we can encourage other teachers to do too, is just to start small and then grow from there. And the idea of using it to help with problem solving. And I love this mystery calls thing. I'm excited to try that in my classroom. So yeah, just starting small and seeing where you go from there.
Yeah, I agree with Sherry, and just being there to support other teachers in our building too. And I think empowering them to start somewhere small with technology doesn't have to be some huge, crazy lesson that they're planning. And I think maybe the more reluctant teachers will kind of, and then even inviting them into your own classroom and kind of seeing what you do would be super helpful for them to see too.
And if no one else has any other, I want to open it up if anyone has other additional comments or questions that they wanted to put out there as we wrap this up.
I have a question. And Kelly, maybe you're the one that would answer this. Do all teachers have an opportunity to go at least once to May Call?
No.
No. Okay. That's unfortunate, because it kind of goes along with that idea of both playing but learning something in a safe environment. I mean, people are so excited when they're
Yeah.
at May Call and what they take away. And it's hard for just the tech, people at the schools in the districts to go and impart that wisdom to everybody and generate that excitement. So I would really encourage districts to send more people.
And Linda, I think you bring up a huge point here, and I think this is kind of a problem across districts, not even just in Michigan, but across the United States, is that when you have a state educational technology conference, and that word technology is part of that, some of our district leadership, some of our school leadership across different districts in the state, I don't need to send my teachers there because we're focused on learning, or we're focused on, we need to focus on some other things. And I think that is such a detriment, because they are then sending a message to their staff that they think technology is really about clicking and not about the creative thinking and not about the collaboration. And if you've been to McCall, it's energizing, and teachers are talking shop, and there's ideas, and you grow as an educator.
Right.
And it's the same thing if you go to ISTE. It's just like your brain is just on fire for that length of time. And when it's discounted as just an app conference or just a technology, and I agree. I think that this should be those opportunities to learn not only how to engage your students, but how to be more efficient and how to communicate better. Those are all parts of those events, and I think that's a big thing.
So lobby for that.
I definitely agree with that, because I think I was one of the few that got to go this year, and it really is. It's too mind blowing for me to even put down to what could I show. There's so many amazing opportunities for 2 days. I can't even still pick what I want to bring back to staff, because there's just so many great ideas. So,
well, and as students, for everyone that's enrolled in MSU, there's a student rate, there's scholarships. Like, if you want to go,
right,
get there.
Yep. Agreed.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much to everyone that could join us here today. I know on behalf of our MAAT group, Sherry and Kelly and I, we could not have done this without you, and we were so happy that everyone could join us. We got everybody here and part of the conversation. So we are going to be posting, it's already broadcasting live, but we'll be posting our resources on our Bridge website. And thank you so much. We might be reaching out to you again to pick your brain about other ideas too, once we kind of synthesize this conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
All right.
Thank you. We really appreciate all of you joining us.
All right, everyone have a great evening.
Yep. You too.
Okay. Bye.